All right, so we got the official version of the story. You have this guy named Mark, and he has these game cameras all around on his property. Somebody tries to steal one of his game cameras. Game camera is to catch a deer. And if a deer walks by, it takes a picture, and it lets the person know that there's deers out there and you can go shoot them. And it can be used against people. And he had set the game camera up to be an IED. Then a person, we're assuming the thief, I don't even know that story. I'd like to know a little bit more about that story. Perhaps it was an unbeknownst, passerby. Oh, I was just wandering in the woods, random woods for no reason, and I came across this mine. And it triggered, and so I heard that this is all about the theories, okay? So I explained the details in the first video. This is all about the theories. So what are the people, what are these anonymous comments, what are they suggesting? And so one person suggested that it was a dope head. A dope head was going around. He was looking for pot, and he was looking for, he saw these game cameras, thought he could steal the game cameras, and he thought that he could sell them and make some money off of them. When he took the game camera, he puts batteries in it. He did something that triggered the IED, and then it blows his hands off. And then he goes and gets a lawyer, and the lawyer to sue somebody. Gets the lawyer to go sue the game cameras because, if this company is making these defective devices, but because, the lawyer was going to sue them, but it comes out to find out that the device itself was altered. Once they find out that the device was altered, the ATF is called in, the ATF investigates the stuff, and then they charge Mark with a crime. Mark is now sitting in jail for this explosive, for making an IED. That's why he's sitting in jail. And the charges, he could very well have had a photo of a naked child on his computer. He very well could have. I'm not denying that. In fact, I think that it is probably likely that he did. But that doesn't guarantee it. You're innocent until proven guilty. And also, he wasn't charged with that. That wasn't the crime they went after. It was the IED. It makes me think of 1984. So 1984, the big brother says, here's the enemy. This is the enemy of the state. And they post this picture everywhere. Everybody's afraid of them. And the enemy of the state could be an enemy for any reason, for being a revolutionary. Che Guevara would have been an enemy of the state. So they show Che Guevara's picture. Then eventually they capture the guy. And then they get the guy to admit that he did some wrongdoing, that he shouldn't have done the wrongdoing. And then later on, he gets killed. He's executed. And then that's it. And then they delete the history of that person of even existing. And then they change the history of it. They either delete the history or they change the history to where he wasn't a great freedom fighter fighting for the oppressed peoples, fighting against tyranny. He was, part of the revolution, Cuban Revolution. He was in Bolivia for revolution. None of that is even talked about. He was just a weird pedophile. He was, even if the shooting wasn't justified, fuck him. He was a bad guy. So he deserved to die. I remember a conversation that I had with that Baton Rouge guy. Apparently he had some charges to being, sexual something with a minor. And it was a charge. I don't know any of the details about that case. So he was charged with it. You're innocent until proven guilty. So I don't even know, sometimes it could be with a 17-year-old. I think there is, I would forgive somebody who was with, somebody that's borderline adult versus a child. If you're, doing stuff with a child, okay, that's super fucked up. That's super fucked up. And so where do we stand now? So I hate this case because of that. That's also CIA propaganda, right? Just tarnish the person's name. So when you look at the people in Maryville, that police officer was shot, and that's unfortunate. Nobody should be shot. Nobody should be killed. And he was shot, and he was killed, and there's a parade, and there's this overwhelming support. People are donating money, and there's just, on Twitter, just so much love and support. That person didn't deserve to die, so let's protect him. But in Baton Rouge, that person didn't deserve to die. But was there an overwhelming amount of public support? Did people say, we need to prop this guy up and we need to care about it? No, they did the exact opposite. Instead of talking about him being a great hero or a great member of society, they take his name and image and they drag it through the mud. And so the argument was, even if he didn't do anything wrong, he was a child molester. So who cares? He's a piece of shit. Who cares if he gets shot for no reason? And I'm mixed on that. That's not the American justice system. He's a piece of shit, yeah, true. But is that justice? I mean, if he's a child molester, is he a child molester? First, I think that's a question of whether or not, if that's true. And if he is a child molester, then he should be murdered? I don't know, perhaps. I think justice is an eye for an eye. And when when you mess with an innocent child, I think child abuse, violence against children, that's also pretty bad too. During their formidable years, something they don't get over for a long time. So justice being an eye for an eye, I tend to put molestation in with rape, and I do believe that you should rape a rapist. Now, who's going to do that? Is the executioner going to rape the person? Should they be put in jail? Should you let some of these, rapists in jail do their thing? There's a poetic justice to that. If you kill a person, you should be killed. If you steal, you should replace the thing that you stole with, either the money or get the thing back or something of equal value. And violence. So these are the 4 worst things that you could do: rape, murder, stealing, and violence. And so I do believe in eye for an eye. I believe in the golden rule. You do unto others, you have them do unto you. So therefore, if people are good to you, you're good to them. If they're shitty to you, you're shitty back. So just like that Justified, the guy was about to pull the gun and shoot him, so he had every right in the world to shoot him first. And like that lady in Harlan County, Ruby Smith, or I don't know, she killed her husband. What happened? You killed your husband? If she says that, it was self-defense and that he was abusing her, does she get away with it? And what if she says, he just pissed me off, He always made these stupid jokes, and I got tired of them stupid jokes, and I killed him. Well, then she should suffer the death penalty. She should be killed, right? She took a life, so therefore, justice. Is it justice if you found a picture? And that's another thing. If you find a picture on somebody's computer, does that say that they're a child molester? That says that they have an image on the computer. It says something. I think it says something. But there's also ways that shit can get on your computer that you have no idea about it. People can catch viruses. You can click on something and then, your computer just goes berserk. So there's shit like that happens. It sucks because the shooting in Baton Rouge, he didn't shoot him because he was a child molester. The guy, Mark, didn't get shot in Woodland Hills because he had an image of a child on his computer. He wasn't charged with that. It was the IED, so it had nothing to do with that. That just come along with the other parts of the investigation. And it's probably a suspected terrorist, right? He's making IEDs. How does he know how to make these IEDs? Is he connected? But there wasn't actually the FBI or the Homeland Security. No, the people that usually investigate terrorism was even there, but the ATF was there. So I think it distracts us from the actual incident, what actually happened. And let's assume that killing somebody who is a child molester is just. Let's assume that. Even still, that person goes before a court of his peers, presents the case, then the court looks at the evidence of the 2 sides, and they make a determination. That's the way our justice system works. If we don't do that, then we're allowing executions to happen on the street for whatever reasons. And so let's assume that it's just to execute a child molester. Okay, that's okay. I personally don't think that that's just. It's not eye for an eye. But it's pretty sick, and also hear that it's a disease that the person never gets over. And so with that in mind, if that was the punishment for that crime, then they should go through the American justice system like anybody else. He's already in jail. He's not going to hurt anybody else. He's not going to get online and get any more images. He actually didn't, he didn't touch a person. It was an image of it. And we don't even know if it really was his image. So let him defend himself. These are accusations leveled against him. Let him defend himself. So he gets up there, and he defends himself. A jury comes back, says that he did it, and then the sentencing phase happens. And then the jury says he needs to die, then he dies. That would be the way to do it. That would be fair. And so the same thing with that guy in Baton Rouge. That guy in Baton Rouge, he got shot. Who gives a shit because he's a child molester? No, he didn't get shot because he was a child molester. He got shot because he was selling CDs, and a homeless guy or somebody came up to him and probably fucked with him, and he brandished a gun. He brandished a gun to him, and then that guy calls 911. 911 comes up there, and he just starts, Billy Badass comes on the scene, starts yelling at the guy, and he starts yelling at him. And then the guy was kind of like, he kind of moves. He clearly didn't want to be arrested. So, yeah, he did a little resisting arrest, but I think you have a right to self-preservation. That's David Hume. If you know anything about the Enlightenment, you have a right to self-preservation. If you think that this guy is going to beat you up and make you submit and then fuck your life over for the rest of your life, yeah, that sucks. And so that's a part of the cop's job. Somebody might resist, so you have to, get a hold of them and you have to make them submit for the crime. But it was an alleged crime. What evidence do you have that a crime happened? That he had a gun? Well, if he had a gun, it's the Second Amendment. He's allowed to have a gun. And then they say, well, he was an ex-felon. He actually wasn't allowed to have a gun. I don't know. I think that's interpretation. So he has to be at the mercy of his enemies. And the police officers had guns. So that's very hypocritical. So if you look at the actual incident of what happened to that guy, I forget the guy's name. I'm going to say Silver or Sterling. Alton Sterling. So the shooting of Alton Sterling, him getting murdered and killed, they said that they picked something up, right? They pulled something out of his pocket, but he wasn't going for the gun. Both of his hands were put down, so him shouting that he's going for the gun is fucking horse shit. It makes it sound like that gives him justification to kill him. Oh, he had a gun, he was going for his gun, and I had to shoot him. So, and then if he's an ex-felon, he wasn't allowed to have a gun, so now he's going to get in trouble. He's going to get in trouble for having a gun. So perhaps he was going to reach for the gun to throw it off to the side. That wasn't my gun. And so that's the actual incident of why he got shot and why he got killed, and if it could have been, handled a different way. Of course it could have been handled a different way. He didn't deserve to die for having a gun. If that's a violation of his parole conditions, then he gets locked back up and he's in jail. He doesn't get killed. He goes back to jail. So, I think that his prior record or his prior charge, not knowing what the incident even is, has no bearing on the actual incident. It's a distraction. So let's go back to the actual case. So you have this Mark guy, this Mark Sawaf. Okay, so he's setting up these IEDs that explodes. Somebody blows their hands off, and people are pissed off about it. Perhaps he had that girlfriend. Perhaps Brad Brzezinski or Dubrinsky and him were, loving on the same woman. If there's any, truth to that at all, then that's a whole other story now, isn't it? Now, the way that the police have handled this situation, in a democracy, the government is supposed to be afraid of the people. Give us the information. Tell us what the hell is going on. Tell us what's going on. You have body cameras. That body camera should have been on 24/7. That's the whole time that you were on duty, that body camera should have been on. So now we can see exactly what happened with those three guys, with that Great House guy and with that, whatever that other guy was, that ATF special agent and the Brad Dubrinsky. So if they were justified in what they did, then the camera exonerates them. The camera acquits them. The camera says, you were clearly in fear of your life, you get to walk on. But if they just killed him just because he's a piece of shit and they didn't like him, because he had a funny-sounding name, because he had brown skin, he had these IEDs, they made a joke, maybe he made a joke about something, some off-color joke, that's not a reason to be murdered. That's not a reason to die. The U.S. Attorney's Office said that he did go for the gun. Like in Baton Rouge, he went for the gun like that Alton Sterling did in Baton Rouge, because he didn't go for a gun. That was bullshit that they made up afterwards. I've even heard, shit, look at that Mark Furman. He says that you could just drop the gun on him, and no matter what, fuck him. Who gives a shit? Yeah, he tried to go for a gun. There's the gun right there. It's in his hand, and he's dead now. So fuck him. So if the KSP is doing the investigation, I'd like for them to take it as a serious investigation. They need ballistic evidence, bullet projections, blood splatter reports. They need to take this as a very serious, this is a murder. This was a execution. And if they did it execution style, that was just one thing that perhaps they had the same girlfriend. But let's say they don't have the same girlfriend. Perhaps they just didn't like the son of a bitch, and so they killed him. Governments lie, and the government should be afraid of the people. And if they go around killing people, that's no good. That doesn't make me feel safe. So anybody that has game cameras, he was setting them up to be IEDs. So they're exploding. So why was he doing that? Was he trying to protect his property? He had been investigated once, and they said that he'd been using it legally. So if he's using it legally, then that's the charge. He would have been exonerated of that charge. They say he had an IED and that it was illegal, and then it goes to court, and then he gets away with that charge. Oh, now he got freedom, right? He got justice. He got charged with a crime. They didn't like the guy, but he got away with it because on your own property, if you want to put up landmines, you're allowed to put up landmines. And I think the Second Amendment does say that. I think the Second Amendment does say that you're allowed on your own property. It's a private property, private land. It's your land. You're allowed to do anything and everything that you want with your own land. If you're a coal company, you could put explosive, blow things up, get down to the dirt. If you're building a road, they use explosives to blow out, rocks, mountain rocks. So, I have some questions. I don't know why the firefighter was at the scene. I don't know when he had remained shackled the whole time. Supposedly he wasn't allowed to use phone calls and to defuse bombs. That's why they took him out there. Why couldn't they have shot him in the leg if he was running away? And they said they tried to take a gun. It just doesn't sound right. It doesn't add up. And we're just supposed to take the words from it. So I remain skeptical. I don't know this man. I don't know what he did and did not do. The allegation of the child pornography on his computers, I think, is the most damning thing of all this against him. So it's like, to hell with him. Who cares about his life? But he didn't actually commit a crime, and he has a right to defend himself in a court of law, and then a jury will say whether or not they agree with his defense or they don't agree with his defense. And I have seen injustice in the courts. I think that the judge can stack the deck, the prosecutors can stack the deck, and that if you don't have enough money for an attorney, but he had enough money for an attorney, so if he's going to get out free and clear and somebody had a personal vendetta against him, I got some serious questions about this incident, and it doesn't sit well with me anytime anybody is shot and killed. Anytime. Murder is the worst thing you could do to a person. So the crime of the child pornography, it's sad that somebody took a picture like that. So that person who took the picture of that child is the biggest criminal. Took the picture and then it got out online. So that's the biggest criminal. The person who looks at that image, now, I mean, that's our state government, right? That's Jack Conway. Jack Conway looked at a whole bunch of images of child pornography, not to look at child pornography, but to see that other people had images of them. And so it's okay for Jack Conway to look at the images, but nobody else. And, so how do you know that the person like Jack Conway, wasn't looking at it if he had it on his computer, then that's something else. I read it on the Commonwealth Journal that somebody was looking at child pornography at a library. And so did they happen to click on the thing and then all of a sudden it popped up and then they try to get rid of it, or were they sitting there just staring at it and copying and pasting and snipping it and saving it? There's differences, right? And also, I mean, I guess if you're at the library, you're probably not doing investigative work. I'm just saying that you can look at the image and it is not for your own gratification, but you're doing it to see that somebody else has it. So, just looking at the image by itself is, it depends on the intent. It depends on the intent behind it. So, I think that's unfortunate and sad, and perhaps it's true. Some authorities said it. It's on the newspaper now, and they described it in detail what the picture was. And so whether or not he was guilty of making IEDs illegally, that won't be brought up in court. Whether or not that picture was even his, he won't get to defend himself. He won't get his day in court. He was killed. Whether it's execution style or not, I don't know. I don't know if it was execution style or not, whether they intend to kill him, whether they provoked the conflict, whether they were all being dicks and, shitting on him and laughing on him and shit. And he just got mad and said something back to him, and it's like, then the guy just started beating him up. And then when he's beating him up, like Alton Sterling, the guy jumps on top of him, and Alton Sterling is moving around, but they said that moving around was reaching for a gun. It wasn't reaching for a gun. So he jumps on top of it. It's like the cops are being lazy. They can't jump on him. They can't attack him. They can't kick his ass. They can't shoot him in the leg if he's running or if he's doing something. There's an unlimited amount of options that they could have done before. Not unlimited, but there was a lot more options that they could have done before they actually shot the guy and killed him. deceased. I don't even know how many shots it was, where it was shot. Was it in the back? Was it straight in the head? So I like these questions to be answered. I don't have any faith that I'll ever get any of these answers. Perhaps throughout the year somebody will actually say what happened, that somebody wanted to beat up and rough him up, and then he turned, and when he turned, that freaked somebody out, or maybe he was kicking the guy's ass. Maybe the cops started this shit. Maybe the firefighter started this shit or something, and then Mark, even though he was handcuffed, was able to kick the guy. He's handcuffed. So how are you reaching for a gun when you're handcuffed? How are you doing anything really when you're handcuffed? You got your feet, and was his feet shackled? If his feet and his hands are shackled and there's 12 to 20 people, the guy was murdered. That guy was killed. And just like that other lady, he should be charged, and he should go through the criminal justice system. If the criminal justice system works, if this is our American system and it works properly, put the evidence in front of the jury and see what the jury says about him. That's fair. That's just. If we're being fair and just. But a lot of times we have, a tier 2 or 3 tiered criminal justice system. One for the wealthy, one for the lawyered, one for the authorities, and then one for all the rest of us. And unfortunately, if you don't have a lawyer, you'll get fucked. You're poor, you'll get fucked. And if you have the wrong colored skin and the wrong name, and it looks like you have some money so you could fight the charge and you could get away with having your IEDs out there, you'll get executed out in the middle of the woods. So, I don't know. I think some people would say, well, that saves the criminal justice system and everything else, but, I mean, that's our system. That's our system. If just because someone alleges something, it was on his computer, does he live with anybody, his wife or kids? Could they have planted that? Could the investigators have put that image on his computer? And if they put that image on his computer, then he's totally innocent. If they put that image on that computer, he is totally innocent of all charges. It's his land. He's protecting his land. People are stealing his shit. So this isn't the only suspicious shooting. If they have body cameras, then we would know 100% for sure or not whether they actually committed a crime. And unfortunately, we don't have a body camera. All we have is testimonies of government officials, and government officials traditionally lie and cover each other's asses. And then they put a little stake on it. They add a little bit of oomph to it. Oh, yeah, not only was he kicking that guy's ass, but he says, I'm going to grab your gun and I'm going to kill you. Wait, are you sure he said those exact words? Yes, he said those exact words. Those precise words is what he said. Even if that wasn't the words that he said. So, I don't trust the government officials. And if they had video evidence, then I would believe them. If they had a guy that comes out and said, well, here was the bad things that happened and here was the good things, like Alton Sterling. I thought he was reaching for a gun. I didn't know. He was resisting, and I feared for my life, and I shot him. That sounds to me like somebody who actually is speaking the truth. You point out some of the bad things that, maybe I wouldn't have done or maybe wasn't pretty, but that's what happened, right? So, yeah, R.I.P. Mark Sawaf. I hope he doesn't have a wife and kids, and if they are, I hope that they are taken care of in a good way, that they have long, good lives. But they fucked with his old man with Oxycontin. They killed him, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I am not convinced of the official story. I'm also not convinced of the alternative theories, and so I'm just left sitting here wondering why.